So I've been obsessively following the war since day one, but I don't really talk about international politics on here, usually just Twitter, because the algorithm only promotes white boys with curly hair who talk about international politics. Like, you can go back and look at some of my views. It barely gets over 100 if it's about international politics. I've even had them taken down for it, but I've been obsessively following it since day one on Twitter. And I just want to give like a brief catch up of what has happened and then explain why the American media just is not fully encapsulating what's happening here. So day one, I'm literally flying in from Mexico and I see an alarm saying that we have killed the Ayatollah and 163 schoolgirls. What has happened there is they thought that killing this one guy and some of his subordinates would do exactly what it did in Venezuela. Even though we didn't kill Maduro, we went into the country, snatched him up, because there's no way our army was going to get into Iran, snatch up the Ayatollah, and make it out alive. So they blew him up and his whole family. Now, I'm not sure who was advising the White House. I'm pretty sure it's drunk. But I'm not sure why they thought a situation in Venezuela, which is a Latin American country. Latin America does not have as much resources as Iran. Latin America does not have the same political upstanding as Iran. Iran is a extremely old country, 6,000 years old. It has nothing on Venezuela has nothing on them from a political backing standpoint, also from a military standpoint. Venezuela has some ammunitions from China and Russia, but they don't have the same as Iran. They're not a manufacturing state. And that's because we have not allowed them to be. They did not have a plan for what happened after they killed Ayatollah, because they assumed that Iran will fall, because they're getting agents like Mossad agents telling them, hey, if Iran falls, the majority of the Iranian Republic doesn't support this regime, which just isn't true. This is not about to be about what happened during the protests. It is just for the simple fact that the Iranian public has issues with their government, but they do not have the issues with their government that would cause them to overthrow the government, especially after you have also killed a religious leader. That's also a difference between Maduro and Ayatollah. Even if people had issues, you literally just killed the head of their sect of their religion. So we do this without a plan of what happens if. And also because Iran has been they have not done as much as they could have done every time we've done something like this. Like, we keep randomly starting wars with them or trying to start a war, and then nothing, they kind of back off. But now you've, again, killed their religious leader, killed the head of their state, and now you've kicked the wasp's nest. Even with the Strait of Hormuz situation, they could mine this thing. They could just mine it and say nobody's getting through, and this is it, this is the end. But they actually have maintained a state of escalating only to a certain degree, so they maintain leverage. So yes, they have hit targets throughout the Middle East. Most of those targets were military bases. They have hit some civilian targets, but they claim that those are military targets. We have no proof of whether or not there aren't, because also the U.S. and Israel aren't going to be honest about, okay, were there soldiers hiding in this hotel? We just don't have any proof of that, but they have hit civilian targets. The American bases have been evacuated. Not completely evacuated, but there have been hundreds of soldiers who have been seen sneaking out in the night, and those soldiers have gone back to bases around Europe and back to the U.S. That is true. So while the U.S. government is not talking about how hard they're hitting our bases, they have torn our bases up. And a lot of that only comes out because of I think they call open source intel. So basically just guys on the internet who are just trying to keep up with news based on what they see on websites like TikTok, like Twitter, and other places, Facebook even. So early on in the war, there was a woman in Germany at the German base up there somewhere in Germany who was like, hey, there's hundreds of soldiers coming in here. We need blood transfusions. They're begging for blood transfusions, and none of the news was talking about it. And of course, the open source people on the US side was like, no, she's lying. Nobody's being hurt. None of this is happening. What happens 2 weeks later? Oh yeah, we have 300 soldiers have been injured, 300 only, and 13 are dead, 13 only. And basically that lady was telling the truth. That's what is happening. I'm closely following these types of updates to get the truth. Of course, don't take everything at full face value, but okay, wait, there's multiple reports of this. This is probably true. So they have hit our bases. They've taken down multiple planes. Iran has claimed to take down more planes than the U.S. government is admitting. Of course, some of that isn't true, but it seems like a lot of it's true. There was a plane that went down over Iraq, and there's been nobody on the mainstream media, and the U.S. government has not claimed that this has happened. But there's videos of the record. And back to the Strait of Hormuz, even if the strait is open, Iran has hit refineries and petrochemical factories and gas fields. And they've hit them because they claim the U.S. has interest in these, which we do. And even though the Gulf states are trying to pretend like they have no bit of this, our U.S. bases are in the Gulf states. The Gulf states are allowing their airspace to be used by the U.S. military and Israel. There's no way for them to get there unless they do. They're not flying under Iran, around Yemen, and around Oman into Iran. The airspace is open for the U.S. military to come to Iran. So that makes them, to Iran, military targets. And because they also cannot reach the U.S. is the reason we go around starting these wars with people, because it is very hard for people to reach us. That's also why we have not really started a war with Mexico, even though we claim we want to bomb the cartel, this, and that. You bombed the Mexico. Now you have a war on your border, which you do not know how to handle. So the refineries are being hit. They're being shut down. I need to go back and find the numbers, but again, nobody's actually updating this. Like, it's literally just people trying to track. There's no like official tracker from any type of mainstream media source, but I'm pretty sure it's up to like 80% of all the oil, gas, petrochemical. So that also includes fertilizer. Non-organic fertilizer comes from these fields. Those things are shut down. So let's say the Strait of Hormuz is open, which it is open according to Iran. They just want you to pay the toll, and if you work for US or Israel, you're not getting through. But everybody else allegedly can get through if you pay the toll. But let's say those ships that are in the Strait of Hormuz get through. Where are the other ships going to go and load their oil? They said it's going to take weeks to get some of these refineries back up. So we are in a fuel crisis, even if Iran opens it fully and stops charging a toll and stops blowing up U.S. and Israeli ships, or U.S. Israeli aligned ships. We aren't really sure what that really means, because the whole world is aligned with U.S. and Israel. But it's not, even if it opens, the fuel isn't open. We also, as Americans, aren't going to really feel what happens outside of oil prices. We aren't really sure. We don't really see how it's affecting people. Countries in the Southeast Asia, countries around Asia, countries in South Asia, like India India has had to shut down factories. They are already feeling this. There are reserves that have not been tapped. I think the whatever the World Energy people call it, I think it's IEA. They have International Energy Agency. That sounds right. They have started releasing reserves, but the countries themselves, as far as I could tell, have not started releasing reserves. They're asking people to use less. Certain countries are closing down schools. They're making government workers work from home. A lot of places in Australia are running out of fuel, but Australia won't admit if it's because they have run out of fuel or if it's because people are just hoarding gas and they're just buying the gas faster than it can be replaced. Airlines in Europe and Asia are starting to cancel flights. The first flights that will be shut down are going to be domestic flights, because those don't make as much money as international flights. Also, they can use the international flights to bring in more supplies. And again, that doesn't change just because allegedly, even though already Israel has started attacking Lebanon, and they also attacked another Iranian oil field before. Iran has maybe said the ceasefire is invalid as of 12:42 ET. I'm not really sure what's happening. But yeah, that none of that immediately goes back to normal, even if this thing is open, because the oil fields have been hit, the gas fields have been hit. There's no plastic. Like the plastic flow is messed up. The fertilizer flow is messed up. Everything that comes out of the Middle East is just basically paused until they figure out how to get it back. No, there's talk of a pipeline that goes from East Saudi Arabia to West, but I'm pretty sure Iran hit that last night before the ceasefire went into effect, and that does not carry enough oil to make up for the supply that has been stopped in the Persian Gulf. That doesn't even touch on whatever happened with this F-15 pilot, because they claim it took 155 soldiers to go and retrieve this pilot. They also claim that Iran did not hit it, but then they were like, oh, well, there was like one guy with a small rifle, which is like a rifle or a handgun. Why would it take 155 soldiers, at least three large planes, the planes like the cargo plane, to go get one person? I'm just saying that, yes, some of these curly-haired white boys are giving updates. They call it breaking news, but I don't think they're actually getting into the meat of what is actually happening on the ground. And what is happening on the ground, even if the ceasefire were to hold, does not look good. Like, it would probably still take 2 months for things to go back to normal for people on the other side of the world. And based on what I just seen, the Strait of Hormuz is closed again. I also forgot, they also aren't saying that the terms for this ceasefire, the terms that sets the negotiations for how to end the war for the ceasefire, are the exact same terms that Iran has asked for since day one. Leave us alone, don't shoot us no more, leave Lebanon alone, because even though there's supposed to be a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, Israel has continued to hit them since like last year. Give us reparations for the damage you've caused for this nonsense, and we still aren't going to make nuclear weapons. We have told you 50 times we aren't making nuclear weapons. Oh, and in the sanctions, Iran comes out better than what they were before. I don't think you should dunk on Trump for that, because we want him to not murder everybody in this country, but it's kind of a mess. Thousands of lives lost for no apparent reason. World economy screwed.